Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Subscription Scaled. I'm your host, Nick Frederick. With me today is Adam Fischer, who is the Chief Product and Innovation Officer at Clearcover. Adam, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, excited to dive in here today. As I was telling you a minute ago, I've got a little bit of experience in the insurance space, so I know about some of the challenges that you're probably dealing with. But let's start at the beginning here with Clearcover. Tell us about the company and your role there.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Nick. So, as you mentioned, I'm Chief Product and Innovation Officer. And what that basically means is I'm responsible for all of the digital products that we build and bring to our customers. So, in a traditional insurance company, you usually have an entire insurance product management function, which we do, and we have our Chief Insurance Officer who handles more of the insurance product piece, so the pricing, the underwriting, et cetera. What my group is responsible for are all the digital products we build on top of that insurance product. So this is the way we acquire our customers, our e-commerce funnel. This is our mobile app and how we service our customers, how we handle claims, and then all of the platform pieces as well. So the core of the core of an insurance company is a policy administration system. So I have some technical product managers who are responsible for the roadmap and building out a great core insurance system that allows us to build great edge services for our customers. And also I'm responsible for the product design, so all the UI, UX design, UX research, et cetera. You mentioned you have insurance experience. Clearcover was my first set of insurance experience. So before this, it was really consumer-facing products. So before this, I worked at apartments.com in the product management department. And then even before that, I was at Redbox, and that was back in Redbox's heyday when they were a $2 million entertainment company. They still actually do pretty well. You'd be surprised, but that was so. All of my experience has been working with consumer products, consumer digital products. So insurance was a real change for me from an industry experience. And the reason that Clearcover sought someone like me out is because that's what InsurTech is trying to do. InsurTech is trying to disrupt insurance and recognizing that throughout the rest of digital experiences that our customers are experiencing, they have a certain level of expectations of what their digital experience is going to be like with an insurer.
Right.
And there's so many insurers right now who are not providing that type of experience. They're providing a much more substandard experience, aren't thinking tech first, aren't thinking digital first. You would even be surprised 4.5 years ago when I joined Clearcover, we were a stealth startup, weren't in market yet. I would meet with some of the distribution partners we were going to start selling through. And the first question they would ask me is, well, will your e-commerce funnel work on mobile? And I mean, my head exploded. If I'm like, of course it will. It's 2017. What do you mean? Of course we're going to build
right?
Yeah, of course we're going to have a responsive site. And they're like, well, you're already going to have a leg up over half the incumbents.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And immediately it stuck with me where you just realize, wow, there's a huge opportunity here. And so my team, again, is responsible for all those experiences. And it's such a fascinating place to work as a product professional because there's just such a diversity of customer problems to solve. Not only do you have to have a great selling experience, and you're selling a pretty complex product when it comes to auto insurance, but you also have to have a great servicing experience. You have to have mobile app experience. And then you start to have to build this wonderful and amazing claims experience. And the claims experience is fascinating because you're dealing with customers who they're probably having one of their worst days when you're interacting with them,
Right.
when they have to submit a claim. And so, in a given day, I'm working on one of those problems and sometimes all of them in the same day. And it's just so fascinating. You don't just get pigeonholed into this one part of the product. But, Clearcover, again, we've been live as a monoline auto insurer for the last 3 years. We started in California. We're now in just over 19 states as of as of the beginning of October. And what we try to ultimately do is to build a digital first auto insurance company to allow our customers to experience a have a great experience with their auto insurance, but also save a lot of money on their insurance because through our digital first approach, we're able to have a certain type of economy of scale and have a much more efficient operation. And as a result, we bring those savings back to our customers and help them save a ton on their auto insurance.
Okay, so lots of questions there. I guess one
Yeah.
of them, and this kind of goes back to, my experience in insurance, which you're dealing with auto insurance, right? So there's a whole lot of variables involved there. And one of the least of which, or maybe the most of which, that you have to contend with are individual states' departments of insurance, right? It's
Yes.
not like
Yes.
a lot of products where you can just launch nationwide and you're good to go. You are having to deal and register and file in every one of those states. So, what is your, Clearcover strategy there in terms of expansion, and how are you dealing with the complexities that come from all of the different requirements?
Yeah, it's a great question. So you mentioned a little bit, but to explain it more to your listeners, there is no such thing as a nationwide auto product when it comes to insurance. It's just not how insurance is regulated. There is no federal insurance regulation. There's a little bit, but not really. All insurance regulation is a state by state level. And so every time we want to enter a brand new state, which is a unique thing for a startup auto insurance company, right? We have been around for 120 years, so we're not already nationwide or near nationwide. We actually have to enter these markets for the first time. And in order to do that, you actually have to go through two levels of approval with each state. So we are acting as a full stack carrier. And so getting a little bit into insurance weeds here, but what that means is there's some insurance companies and some insurtechs who work as what's called a managing general agency, which means there's another insurance company who's behind the actual product. You're just actually managing the entire product on behalf of that insurance company. In every state but California, we're a full stack carrier. And so you first have to get approved just to be an insurance carrier in a state. Once you get that approval, then you have to file the entire product, and this I mean the insurance product, with the state, and you have to get all of that approved by the state. Now, some states have certain rules that will actually let you go live in the state before they give you full approval, but if they have changes they want you to make, you have to make them immediately. Whereas others say you can't even sell until we give you full approval. And to your point, as a product professional, this wreaks havoc on roadmaps. It just does. Because the planning process is so long, from the curation of from the legal submission for a certificate of authority to be able to sell as a carrier, to forming the insurance product based on each state's regulations. And we have a near nationwide product when it comes to rating and underwriting and the forms we present and all that. But then there are certain regulations that you have to modify that insurance product. And then my product team has to take those requirements and make all the requisite changes to our core platforms in order for this to work. So there's a lot of layers of complexity purely from a program and project management point of view. Then, it cascades down to the user experience we have to bring to our customers. There's all these different rules and different ways we have to ask certain questions. And then the technology piece, where you have to keep all of these rules straight so that you're following the law, right? Breaking the law when it comes to insurance regulations is very punitive. You can get in a lot of trouble. And so you have to build really sophisticated technology solutions that allow you to keep all these rules together, allow us to do really solid regression testing around our software to make sure that if we make a change in one state, it's not impacting another state, et cetera. So there's a lot of layers of complexity, and we have a lot of full-time product professionals on my side who their full-time job is just to make sure that we're following the law in all of our states and providing the right customer experiences on a state-by-state basis.
So it's so interesting because your title as product and innovation officer flies in the face of insurance and everything it tries to do, which is to just ratchet down and make everything, well, seemingly as difficult as possible. It's for a lot of good reasons, but how do you deal with those things being at odds with each other?
Yeah, the first thing and the most important thing is to recognize that as a company and as a culture within our company, we have to be a company that puts the customer first always. And it's one of our core principles, one of our core operating principles for anyone we hire. We make sure that whomever we bring in, it doesn't matter your industry experience. Look, we have to have a ton of folks who have a ton of industry experience, who have maybe been in companies that this is true with. but they come because they recognize we're trying to do something different. And they come because they realize that these are what our operating principles are. They are really customer-centric principles that always puts the customer first, thinks about their user experience, and works backwards. And so it's really my job to, one, for my team, bring in people who are fantastic at technology and building UX experiences for customers. But two, to also make sure that I'm doing everything to ensure that's the culture of the company, writ large as a senior executive team member, and that I'm doing everything I can to imbue the organization with that type of customer centricity and with that customer first mindset. And so even on the innovation side, right, like it's not my job to come up with all the great ideas. It's my job to incubate those ideas from all of our leaders and bring the ones to the top and advocate for them, and then find ways to bring them to the fore and find ways to make that a core part of our business and what we do.
Well, so 19 states now, you guys are looking to continue to expand. Is it nationwide's the goal there?
Yeah, so we call it near nationwide. Some states are just really hard to get into for a lot of different reasons. Most of them are around seasoning requirements. So you have to have been an insurance company and have a certain amount of experience for a certain amount of time. And so it's going to take a while to get into every state because of those seasoning requirements. But yeah, our goal eventually is to scale to near nationwide as prudently. I don't want to say as fast as possible. I want to say as prudently as possible.
Sure, sure. And auto insurance is the primary product. Are you looking to expand beyond that?
Yeah, well, we always say when it comes to other lines of business is we always want to keep our options open. You just never know where we're going to go and what's going to make the most sense for our customers and for our business. But as of right now, auto absolutely is our
Okay.
focus.
So you're a full stack insurance company, built from the ground up to be digital first. It sounds like you use a lot of affiliate and partner marketing to get distribution out there into the market.
Hmm.
There's obviously some competition out there.
Yeah.
Historically, I think the legacy, we'll call them legacy insurance carriers,
Yep.
were very averse to digital or just didn't understand it, how to reach customers. In fact, some of them, they always relied on other third parties to do their marketing and
Hmm.
acquisition, right? They just wanted to, kind of be the financing and claims arm in the back end. They didn't want to get into that. So, what are you guys now doing, being this startup here to kind of differentiate yourselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, from our perspective, again, we start with the customer, and we think, customers really want transparency, convenience, low prices, and superior value. And we think if we could bring those things to our customers, we're going to win. And so, from a differentiation point of view, one of the things that I have found I don't like to call them legacy carriers because I still feel like I'm coming off being pejorative. I like to call them incumbents.
Okay.
So, our incumbent competition, one of the things that I think your more discerning listeners who are digital natives, you kind of know when you're using an experience that this is maybe a company that is maybe first a marketing company and a little bit more involved in kind of business processes, and they know they need to have a digital experience, they know they have to build the technology, but that they're just not obsessed with the experience. You can just
Right.
tell. You can
Uh-huh.
tell when you open up the app. You can tell with the way even the navigation's built. I'm a product professional, so I see this stuff firsthand. But you just use the app and you just say, well, I can see where this is a 7-person committee deciding where some of these links go and like who's going to get first billing on this.
Uh,
And you're laughing because I think you know what I'm talking about.
Me
You've
too.
experienced that as a consumer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what you see with a lot of these incumbents and their experiences. You can
Mhm.
tell that it's kind of designed by committee, and it's not necessarily saying what's the right experience for the customer and then try to shape the business around that. It's more, well, we have this business and now we have to shape the technology around it. And so our differentiation is really it's a mindset, it's a process thing to start. It's start with the customer, work backwards, and start with the experience and work backwards. And it sounds trite, but it's true, and our customers recognize it. We get fantastic. So one of the ways we measure our success when it comes to my team, obviously you have your traditional insurance KPIs, et cetera, but when it comes to my team, one of the ways that we measure our success is through a customer effort score. And our customer effort scores are through the roof. And that tells us that we've provided a very frictionless experience for the customer, one that gives them confidence in the coverages they're selecting, one that gives them confidence in the coverage that they're getting, and one that when they're finished, they feel is pretty painless in an industry that isn't known for bringing painless things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was laughing before because I spent, prior to where I am now, where I've been for 6 years, I was 11 years at this company that sold insurance, who had been selling it for decades before I got there. So
Mm-hmm.
while they were a TPA and not an actual insurance carrier, they were direct mail was how they got the majority of their customers. And some of our clients, or really our affiliate marketing partners, were a lot of financial institutions. So when we started making the conversion from offline enrollment and acquisition to online and digital, you can just imagine how painful that was. When you built an entire business around being really offline and now trying to make it digital, and you've got a whole bunch of people in the room who've been doing it one way for a really, really long time. So you
Mm-hmm.
end up with really kludgy, not customer focused solutions because, well, let's start with you're probably bolting a website over top of a whole lot of legacy infrastructure,
Yep. Yep.
old systems, old databases, and you're just trying to make this thing work. Now you've got legal involved from a corporate perspective, and then an insurance compliance perspective, the product people, and then of course the IT side of the house, and everybody just wants to control it. And you ended up with something that was like, yeah, I get this meets all of your requirements, but this is a terrible customer experience, right?
Yep.
So when you're starting from the ground up, I assume that kind of frees you up some more because now you're making the full stack decisions, right?
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And the the obvious conclusion is it's like Frankenstein's monster, right?
Hmm.
Except in this case, there was only one Dr. Frankenstein. He just had sourced the parts from a lot of different places.
Uh-huh.
But with a lot of other companies, it's a Frankenstein of cooks in the kitchen and really competing interests that sometimes don't revolve around the customer. Additionally, to be fair to our incumbents, who we respect the heck out of, right? They do great work, right? Sometimes it doesn't matter how well-meaning it. You can have a completely customer-obsessed culture, but when you're dealing with technology that had to deal with Y2K, when you're dealing with
Hmm.
technology where you still have open job recs for COBOL
Yeah.
developers,
Right.
that's going to impact your customer experience. It just is. And the API layers you end up having to build, the middleware layers that you have to build end up having to your point, be built around old business processes, old ways of doing things, and the customer recognizes. Now, of course, some customers don't even know what an API is, but the customer sees it. They know, look, I'm kind of getting, this is a little weird. Like this
Uh-huh.
isn't what I would expect.
Yeah.
And that's another area of differentiation for us is in the ways that, we've built a ton of custom technology within our stack that allow us to put that customer experience first and then work our technology backwards from there.
So that's a great segue because as you guys have built this up, I'm sure you've got a lot to deal with, not just the marketing and acquisition side, but then the claims and billing and payments and all of that. Where did you guys decide to draw the line between, all right, this is something that's very proprietary, it's us and our business, therefore we're going to custom build this, or I can go get something off of a shelf, or I can get something off of a shelf and modify it a little bit. Where did you guys make those kind of decisions?
That line has evolved as our size and frankly our funding has changed.
Okay.
And so it started was actually let's build Frankenstein's monster so we can prove our model and continue to attract customers and show that we have product market fit and that we're worthy of investment and we're worthy of surviving. And so that was one line. As funding's increased, as our size and scale has increased, the line has changed. And what I would say, where I would say the line is now is twofold. One is there's just some table stakes stuff that exists in the insurance industry that you just have to have, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because some of those vendors are very monopolistic, and you just have to pay that tax to some of those vendors, and that's the price of doing insurance. There's then, when we have more choice in the market for vendors, the build versus buy decision comes down to, is there anything about the technology stack of this vendor that's going to prevent us from building world-class customer experiences? And you end up finding a lot of vendors where you're just like, no, of course not. The fantastic API, well documented, conceives of every use case we could want. At that point, speed to market and cost are going to be our next barriers. And so as long as we can get to market faster with a vendor solution and the cost is going to be about the same of what we can do, use the vendor solution. No reason to reinvent the wheel. And cost is really important. And it's not just because we're a startup and we have to be scrappy and we have to stretch our dollar a lot further. It's also because every time we spend money on something we can do more efficiently, that's money we can't give back to our customers in lower premiums. And so this is why, we used to work in these things called offices. I don't know if you're familiar with them. It's a real long time ago.
About these.
Yeah. But that's why, our CEO, for example, his desk in our office is the same desk he used when we were a startup. And like he has to put a couple of coasters under one of the legs to keep it solid, right? And he's doing it to prove a point, which is literally every cent that goes into something that we don't necessarily need is another cent we're taking out of our customer's pocket. Because we think that, customers, of course, they want a digital experience, but they're not going to pay a huge premium for a digital experience. What they really want is a low-cost solution for a compulsory product and be able to obtain it, service it, and use it in a very frictionless way. And so everything that we spend on a vendor that we can do ourselves as fast is just another dollar that can't go to our customers in lower premiums.
So I would think any business would say the vendors that you choose, especially in the beginning, while you want to, wherever you don't have to reinvent the wheel, don't want to do that, they still become truly a partner, right? Because they're now part of your ecosystem, your product delivery, your success. So what are the criteria that you use to evaluate whether or not they're the right fit? Because somebody can wow you with a product demo, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to do that, but can they deliver, execute on what they say they're going to do? The product that's great today, will it meet the changes and new requirements for 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the road? So what's important to you when you're looking at that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you brought the word partnership up, and I think that is actually something that's super important to us, which is when we work with the vendor, when we talk about them, when we're evaluating using them, do we see this as a company that's just trying to sell us, or do we see this as a company that's trying to partner with us and create with us
Yeah.
and help us build a better experience for our customer? And you find plenty of vendors who just have this really terrible sales process where you're just kind of, you're just a commission, and it's clear that you can't access some of their technical minds, you can't access some of their solution engineers. It's really hard, and we just say no, because this has to be a partnership. And then we look at their track record, right? Are they consistently innovating in their space? Are they consistently building new technologies? Are they consistently releasing new features? You look at their release notes, you look at their release note blogs, and you see, oh, okay, these things seem to be happening rapidly. These things also all are logical things as to why they would have maybe done them in that order. And then you have to have a kind of conversation about, look, how does our feedback get into your roadmap? And how often are you taking customer feedback, putting into your roadmap, and iterating on your product? And some vendors are really good at that. Some vendors, they're good at taking your feedback, but it's very hard for them, based on the state of where they're at in their company's life cycle, to say, that's great, but I have so many of these other table stakes things I need to build. I'm not going to be able to do it. So there's a science to it, your standard kind of RFC process, et cetera. But then there is an art to it, and there's a relationship building aspect to it as well.
Are there any particular lessons learned there that stand out to you that you were like, man, I wish I would have just asked this question at the onset, or maybe should have seen it coming, or something like that?
Yeah, I would say trust but verify.
Okay. Always
And
good advice.
sometimes when you're moving really fast, You just can't. And then I would give the same piece of advice that I would give to somebody hiring a new hire, which is don't buy desperate. And I would tell somebody don't hire desperate, right? And so what ends up happening is you end up settling, and you end up just being in a position where you got sold instead of you got served.
Yeah.
And so don't buy desperate. And if you are buying desperate, you should ask yourself, wait, should this actually be a core competency of my company?
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of hiring there, certainly in my career, we are in the most challenging hiring environment for technology professionals in particular that
Yes.
we've ever seen. So while you don't want to hire desperate, I think you really do have to start changing the way you think about what's important to you, how you find it, and kind of what those bars are for, okay, this is worth, every hire is a risk, right? There's no such thing as the
Mhm.
perfect hire. You're taking a risk on everybody, no matter how good their resume and interview went. So
Mhm.
how's that changing for you guys?
It's a great question. You know, as a startup, you go through a lot of fundraising, and investors always like to ask the question, what keeps you up at night? And before I had the innovation side of the house, I was actually our CTO for a while. And I would give them two answers. One was security. And even though I'm not the CTO, security still is a very big concern. It has to be concerned with product professionals as well as the
Sure.
technology team. And people. Those are the two things that keep me up at night as a leader in this company. And it is unlike anything I've ever seen. I have very similar experience as you. And you have Valley companies, East Coast companies coming in and offering Valley salaries to people in the Midwest to stay living in Schaumburg, for your people who are in the Chicagoland area, look at
Mhm.
that joke. But, it's really unlike anything I've ever seen. And so what can you do, especially as a startup, right? You can be competitive on salary, but you can only be as so competitive. Additionally, you have your equity lever, right? So we are a startup. We can offer equity. We can help you buy into a future payoff, and some people want that risk. Some people just aren't very interested in that. Cash is king, especially in an economy where the inflation is really rising the way it's rising, and I need more cash. This is
Yeah.
what I need, and equity is great, but I can't do it. And people are in different places in their lives where that totally makes sense. So what else can you do? The rest is just culture. The rest is just how you build a company and the type of work environment you give folks. And and that all starts with listening to your employees, listening to the people who work for you, and making sure that you're taking that feedback and building a better place to work, right? Building a better place for people to be creative, to bring their best to work every day, recognizing that we're in very unique circumstances still in the middle of the pandemic, and taking that feedback and building a company that they want to work for. And so, we were super proud. We were named comparably one of their top 50 engineering companies in the country. And, a couple of the other companies are like small regional companies like Google and Facebook. Maybe you've heard of them. They're kind
Mm-hmm.
of
Sounds
minor
familiar.
companies. But, like we take great pride in that because those are companies that are surveying employees to get to those lists, right? And employees are talking about what it's like to work at a place. And so the best thing we can do is just try to build the best experience for our employees. And so I like to say that I have like three sayings. One is everything is user experience, and that's whether that's as a customer or as an employee.
Mhm.
It's the design stupid. It's always about design, and everything is requirements. And so when it comes to employees, the same thing is true. Like it's all about the experience that you're building, and that's all you can pull. Those are the levers you can pull. And for some people, they're still going to get ridiculous offers outside of what we can offer, and there's not much you can do. But for the people who are here and the people who stay, you reward them through fair compensation, and ideally a place they want to come to work for every day.
Have you done anything playing around with maybe roles themselves and trying to get people more involved in, you guys are a startup, right? So things are changing constantly and being more involved in the innovation and therefore feeling more, you know, engaged and have a bigger stake in the outcome. Are there things like that that are working?
Yeah, we try to have a planning and road like an annual planning and road mapping process that's very bottoms up. And to your point, that leads to better engagement because people feel more in control of the work that they're going to do and the goals we're setting. It also, as shareholders, it's also the right thing to do. Right? Employees are a huge group of shareholders who have equity in our company, and so as a result, you're also giving them a way to vote in a different way, and through helping shape the type of work, the type of things we're going to do, and the type of experiences we're going to build for our customers. So we try to be bottoms up. It's an insurance company, so there's some things you just have to be top down on because it's literally the law and you just have to do these things. But in as much as we can, we try to be as bottom up in our road mapping, our goal setting, and our annual planning processes as possible.
That, that so many want that transparency now. It's like I'm not just doing this for the paycheck. I'm investing in the company. So knowing who this company is and where it's going, uh, just more important than ever. Everybody wants to feel like they're a part of that.
100%. And then transparency is always funny because we also do hire a lot of people who haven't been in a startup before. And then we're transparent with things like our runway. And then people are like, whoa, wait a minute. You mean we might run out of money by X
Yeah.
date? And it's like, hey, you wanted transparency. Here you
Hmm.
go. And then you explain to them why that's not as scary as it sounds.
Yeah.
And but it's sometimes that transparency causes a little discomfort. But
Uh-huh.
people deserve to know that, right? People deserve to really understand how the company is doing, and for better or for worse, and all the wins and all the losses.
Well, so let's go back a couple of years. I asked this question and nearly everyone, but what did COVID and the pandemic? I mean, were you guys in an office before that, or you tried to be remote from the beginning? And then what did it do to your how you guys interacted with customers? You're digital first to begin with, so
Yeah.
but selling auto insurance, a lot of cars got parked for a long time. So
Hmm.
what happened there?
Yeah. No, COVID was scary for everybody, and so back to your question. Yeah, we were an office first culture. We did have a remote workforce. I think at the time when the pandemic hit, and don't quote me on this, I think we were maybe 10 to 15% remote. So we had a remote culture. We like our CEO always likes to say, Kyle always likes to say that we hire adults and we treat them like that. And so work from home friendly, but you're going to probably spend 4 or 5 days a week in the office, unless you work from home a day a week for some reason. And so when the pandemic hit, because we were remote friendly, it wasn't that big of a shift from how we do work, right? So all of our conference rooms in our office in Chicago still have Zoom room setups, right? So you walk in, you tap the iPad, you start the Zoom. It's where we did our stand-ups as a technology org, and where we'd have meetings. And our co-founder is actually was remote. So Kyle, our CEO, lived in Chicago. Our co-founder Derek Brigham was living in Madison. So we always were remote friendly from like the day we were incepted. But so as a company, I would say on the way we work as employees and the way we congregate, yeah, we did a dry run just to make sure it was going to work right around the end of February, beginning of March of when the pandemic hit. And then we've been fully remote since then. So look, it's not to say it was smooth from an operations point of view. From a people point of view, it's been hard, right? I've had more skip level meetings than I've ever had in my career in the last 20 months because there's such a psychological toll that is taken on people. And you have people who are at different places in their lives, and depending on where they're at in their lives, some people are maybe able to handle it a little bit easier. Some people aren't, right? And everyone, what I learned as a leader is that everyone had such unique living and family situations that it had a huge impact on how they could deal with the pandemic. Some parents, it was great. Some parents, it was super stressful. And you would then talk to some of your folks who, single mid 20 somethings, and they were dealing with problems with isolation and just overworking because they didn't have anything to do. Their normal social outlets were gone. And especially really early on when nobody knew what was really going on with the virus and everyone, like when fear was at its highest, you might think, oh, well, they're single, they don't have to worry about kids on virtual classes and all that. They're probably doing fine. They were in some cases hurting more than some of our parents were, right? And so you started to realize that people have such diverse living circumstances and situations and backgrounds that the pandemic really had an individual toll on people. And you start to see it, you start to say like, yeah, like I'm actually a little bit more worried about my, my millennial employees who are feeling a lot more isolated because the parents, at least, even though they're a little stressed out, like they felt different. They had a family. It was just like a different type of social feeling for them. So, for us, it was just stay in constant communication, make sure people felt supported, make sure people realized that if your kid pops into a Zoom meeting or you need to take some time off, like that's all cool, that's all fine. We let everyone use their company Zoom personally if they wanted to meet with family, or, we had an employee who actually Zoomed a wedding for somebody through our company Zoom, because we had enough seats and like the personal one would cost $100, right? Like all those things we could do, we did.
Yeah.
From a customer impact point of view, yeah, again, the customer operations side, because we're digital first, not a huge impact. Our we do have a call center still. Our call center, we had remote folks throughout the company and throughout the country, even though they were still congregating in an office. But the technology piece was there. It was easy for them to take calls anywhere. So that was all figured out. The security piece, obviously super important. That was all figured out already. So from an operational point of view, pretty easy. There was some scary times there because you start to see, sales pulling back a little bit. And you're like, what's going on? Very minor, right? Like from an overall impact to the business, it was pretty minor. An insurance company deals with a lot of other interesting things. Driving behavior is one of them, et cetera. And the entire industry is seeing post-COVID, or even like within the last 9 months, just interesting kind of severity, of accidents. And you would think since the frequency is down, severity would still be down, and everyone in the country is seeing kind of increased severity. So that's a little interesting. But, overall, there was maybe a couple of weeks there where it was a little scary, but after that, it was
Moving along.
it was kind of, I
Yeah.
don't want to say business as usual because of course not, but
Right. Right.
it was
Yeah.
it's been different, but not as scary as
Yeah.
when it
Yeah.
all first started.
Yeah, I mean that's a fairly common answer, and actually some of the guests that I've had that sell physical goods, when they were an online subscription-based company, were like, you almost just hate for these words to come out of your mouth, but it was great for our business, because now all of this stuff went online, and while that's true, and it was still everybody would go back and not have it happen at all, but yeah, that's I guess one of the insulators, from a digital first business, right? Is the as long as the internet's
Yep.
up, we're in pretty good shape.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, so what's next for Clearcover? I mean, we talked about, continuing to expand in different states around the country and maybe looking at other product lines. But is there anything about the product itself that that's coming? You're the
Mhm.
innovation officer. Is there anything you can share there?
Yeah, what I can say is when you're building an insurance company, there's just so much to build that you just need, right? So MVP is a very popular thing to talk about. MVP for an insurance company is weird. And that's because there's just so many things
Okay.
that literally, especially from a regulations and a legal point of view, that everything's MVP. And you literally can't do without this, or you legally can't sell this product. And so there's then things that are okay, yeah, it's not a legal thing, but it's just table stakes technology stuff you need as an insurance company. And there's some of that we still have to build, right? There's some of that just core infrastructure we still have to build. And so a lot of it is just making sure we feel like the table stakes are done. We're really good there. And then starting to reach out and say, look, we're digitally native. We have a ton of digital natives on our book of business who love our app, who love interacting with us when they do. What are some opportunities to increase that engagement? What are some opportunities to help provide experiences that are going to add value to their purchase that could be related to the insurance product, could not be related to the insurance product, right? How can we just consistently add value to our customers? That's a real big thing we're thinking about. And how do we do it in a way to increase engagement, but not in a weird way? Not in a, hey, here's your 5 summer barbecue tips, or, here's your happy birthday
Yeah.
kind of cut off
Uh-huh.
GIF from your agent sort of way.
Right.
How do you keep people thinking about Clearcover, but in a non-annoying way, to be honest, and provide value to them?
That was always the weirdest thing about insurance to me. So we had a lot of different product lines. Insurance was just one of them. And we saw, first of all, when it came to billing, recurring billing and payments, we would see a lot of different collection rates, and insurance being the
Mm-hmm.
highest. One is because
Mm-hmm.
we did a whole lot more ACH than credit card, but the second reason was that this is a product that people really, really want. Sometimes when it's some sort of membership club, if it lapses, they're like, yeah, not that big of a deal. But insurance is one of those things where you actually don't have it if you don't pay for it. So you better make sure that you pay
Yep.
for it. Um,
Yeah.
but just the just the mindset there is so different. I think that it was just so interesting to see that across different product lines, and
Yeah.
um, I, I don't know. It was just an interesting fact.
Yeah. Look, I mean, compulsory products on top of it are a heck of a thing, aren't they?
Hmm. Absolutely. But it's one of the beauties of insurance, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's the type of product that a customer doesn't really engage with it until they really need to engage with it, right? They gotta
Yep.
get it on the front end, and then it's kind of set it and forget it until the day that they need it. But they also hope they don't actually need it, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of that
And,
weird,
and
yeah,
And it's and as somebody who offers the product, we kind of hope they don't use it,
yeah, yeah,
and so
uh-huh,
like you don't really want to use us, we kind of really don't want you to use us, and yet here we are in an ongoing multi-year relationship,
right.
and then how do we break that cycle? How do we break that cycle in a way that doesn't increase claims getting submitted, but allows us to bring value and engagement that's meaningful and that enhances your life and enhances the type of protection we can bring you, but doesn't doesn't do it inauthentically or inorganically.
Yeah, that's got to be a big challenge, right? Because again, a lot of times in subscription now, engagement is the name of the game. Demonstrate ongoing
Hmm.
value over time, right? And
Hmm.
remind the customer of the value. And in the insurance game, again, use the same example. They might sign up for it and not really need to engage with it for years down the road from when they first sign up with it. But when
Hmm.
you do, you want to be there for them. You need to make it easy and smooth, and that's all part of the process. That's the word of mouth that's going to increase your business, right? So you got
Yeah.
to be there. But I'm sure it can be a challenge when the customers are so sporadic in their interactions with you.
It is. It's also why, again, back to talking about MVP, that's why our mobile app, and as well within our mobile app, having our claims process was MVP for us to launch the company. Because to your point, the expectations are so high when you do need us that we don't want to let you down.
Right.
We want to make sure we meet those expectations digitally for you. And so, for us, it's when you do need us, it better be the best experience you've ever had in insurance. And then what can we do to help you outside of just the standard I need to add a vehicle or I need to file a claim sort
Yeah.
of
You,
experiences.
you don't want to take them through an elegant, nice, smooth buying process on an app. And then after they've signed up and they want to change their payment method or they need to file a claim, go, oh, here's an 800 number. You
Yeah.
know, that is not consumer
Here's,
expectations these days.
here's a Google form, and we'll
Correct.
submit it to somebody who's going to call you back.
Yeah,
And
I'm going to email you a PDF. Could you print this out and fill it in and then fax it back to me?
yeah, it's all check boxes, though. Don't worry. But
Yeah, right, right,
we'll
right.
mail you a Scantron and a number 2 pencil, and
I
you'll be
wish I
fine.
could say
Yeah,
I was joking, but those things still happen these days.
they sure do.
Yeah,
They sure do.
yeah. Well, Adam, this has been a fun conversation, a little bit back down memory lane for me, into the insurance days. But number one, for any of our listeners who heard something today and maybe has some questions for you, how could they get in contact with you? And of course, tell us about the website for Clearcover.
Yeah, absolutely. So clearcover.com is the best place to answer both of your questions. So check us out if you can see where we have coverage. Feel free to get a quote by us. We love new customers. You also can find ways to contact our executive team, including me,
Yeah,
on the website as well. So
great. Awesome. Well, again, appreciate the insights today. I trust our listeners did as well, but best of luck to you and the Clearcover team.